coming at you today, The Henchman, Chapter 1. That's right, I've got a news story for you, and I'm going to read it on this episode. So, new episode of Great Stories Change the World coming up for you next. Welcome to Great Stories Change the World. This is the YouTube channel where a fantasy science fiction author, that's me, looks at different things like books, movies, other stories. I do reviews, and now I am adding some original stories to my channel. This is something I've been wanting to do, and I'm going to start with chapter 1 of a book right now. I'm going to get into that in just a few minutes. But first, I'm going to do a quick update on a few things. What am I watching? What am I reading? I watched the Echo series that came out on Disney Plus. It's a Marvel series, and it had about 6 episodes, I think, maybe 5 or 6 episodes. And the Echo character was introduced during the Hawkeye series a year or two ago, a couple years ago. And she was sort of interesting. They brought in Wilson Fisk, and there's sort of a little scene, not a little scene, kind of a major scene with Daredevil, but that's all we get of Daredevil. And just a couple thoughts, no spoilers here, a couple thoughts on this series. I liked it. This series has been getting a lot of bad press, Rotten Tomatoes, really low score, a lot of bad press, a lot of people. And a lot of people just really putting this down. I wouldn't put it in the good category, but I also wouldn't put it in the horrible category. I think that it lacked a really good arc. It lacked a few things that kind of would make it a little more cohesive. But I liked some of the Native American stuff that they did. And I liked some of the character things that they did with Echo and some of the relationships that she had. And overall, I enjoyed the show. I do think that they had some sort of convoluted moments that really didn't work so well with the storyline. They were kind of easy moments, and I think they could have delved into some different things. So I would definitely give it more of a C, but I wouldn't say it was awful, horrible. I think that it's not up to par of what we would want from a Disney Plus show or a Marvel show, but I definitely wouldn't put it in like the F or even a D. I'd give it a solid C. And I think there were some issues that I really actually enjoyed. I appreciated the sign language conversations. I know some people have been complaining about that. I actually enjoyed it. So there were some things were heavy-handed and some things weren't kind of explored as much as I want, but I'd give it a solid C. So you tell me what you think. Put it in the comments. Also wanted to go over a book that I read recently that I really liked, and it's called Untethered Sky. Now, this is from Fonda Lee, who was from like Jade City, and she's done a lot of other things. And I got this from the library. I love the library. I read a lot more books that way. And this is a novella. It's a short read. It's really appropriate for basically anybody. You know, it's not super graphic or sexual, but I just think it's a really cool story about this young woman. More of a noticing a theme here. I didn't mean for it to be a theme, but it's more of a Native American sort of culture. And so she goes into some of this. Now she's Canadian. I think the writer is Canadian. And so she just goes into some really interesting mythology and world building, but she doesn't go into like a huge extent. Like she doesn't go so far into the mythology that it's just a lot of world building. Again, she just kind of hits the highlights. And basically these people work with these huge hunter eagles to hunt down monsters. Now they hunt down food and stuff sometimes too, like wolves, but they hunt down monsters. And I just really thought this was a cool read. I read it like in an hour or two. Of course, I'm a fast reader, but I highly recommended this book. Now, a quick update on my own writing. My book is out. My book, Shield of the King, is out. It is live. And let me give you a little preview for you here. So here is my book, Shield of the King. It's in hardcover. You can get it. I'm going to put the link into the description. You can look for it on Amazon, but I'll put the link to the publisher there. So You don't have to do Amazon if you don't want, or you can look there. But I'm getting some great reviews for this book, some industry reviews that are just 5 stars, highly recommended. So it's not just my mom who thinks this is a great book. Okay, this is a superb book about a young woman, Elowen, and her sort of starting out her origin story of becoming a warrior and sort of a world changer. And so this is kind of the beginning of her story of her coming into her own and her family and what she believes about what it means to be a hero in a world that is divided. And we are coming up into a divided time in our country with the election, and that's a lot of what she deals with, is that she has to deal with two sides of a very divided culture. So check it out if you will. All right, before we get into the actual story, chapter 1, let me explain a little bit of what I'm doing. This story is called Henchman, or The Henchman, and it's going to be part of a series of stories that I do about this character, Mr. Grym. It is fantasy, and it's about organized crime, and it's a story that I've been wanting to write for a while, but I've got other stories in the queue sort of to be published with my publisher and self-publishing. So I just decided maybe I should do this as a sort of a story that I read on YouTube. I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know if you guys are going to like it or think it sucks. Okay. So before I bore you anymore, here we go. Here's chapter 1 of The Henchman, this Hammer Soul series, book 1. All right. Check it out. The Henchman, chapter 1. I strode down the main street through the city of Landon. I marched with purpose. I was on my way to quit my job. The humid air barely stirred around me. Despite Landon being surrounded on 3 sides by ocean, breezes didn't often make it past the high outer walls. I began to sweat and grunted at the wet spots forming at my armpits, marring my expensive purple shirt. The shirt's wide collar opened to reveal the tattoos across my chest. The markings continued down my arms to the wrists. I wore baggy trousers and leather sandals. My graying hair thinned around my temples, so my black hair was covered by a wide-brimmed hat. I had left Bone Wrecker, my hammer, at home. The buildings on either side of the wide street were made with stone and plaster, all browns and grays. I caught the common whiffs of crit and urine from side alleys and gutters near shops. While I hadn't been born in Landon, I had been raised there. This was my city, and I knew each street, alley, and district better than my own heart. Turning to the left, the Northern Daigal's palace dominated my vision. A great and ancient building, the rectangular palace was 20 stories tall and made of sepia stone. Small open windows gave little hint to the bustle of activity within. 5 men guarded the massive wooden double doors at the front of the palace. Intricate designs were carved into the doors. Dragons of the sea and crashing waves. I walked through a vast courtyard and approached the guards. I knew them by name. They knew me by name and reputation. They called me Mr. Grym. They parted to allow me through, and 2 opened the large doors for me. I stepped into a spacious room with a high ceiling and stone pillars at the center. Men and women milled about the room on couches and tables, a long bar serving drinks spread out to my left. Most of the men in the room and the guards outside were hired thugs for Lord Tomas. Some had clubs as weapons. A few had elven short swords. I was the head henchman, at least until I quit. Many in the room nodded their greeting while I walked through the room. Not out of kindness or friendship, they acknowledged me out of respect or fear. Mostly fear. I arrived at the staircase in the back of the room, ascended 3 flights of stairs, and headed straight down a long hallway to Lord Tomas's parlor. The doors to the parlor had been spread wide. Tomas had sent for me, so he waited there. I wasn't the tallest or largest man in the city, but I was big enough, with wide shoulders. With the lamp in the hall behind me, I threw a shadow across the room. Tomas stood at the bar here in the parlor, a glass of whiskey in his hand. Alone, the lord of the northern Daigal scowled at his drink. But once he noticed me, his shoulders sagged and he turned toward me. Mr. Grym, please come in. I need you, my friend. This wasn't unusual. Tomas always needed me. The Daigal were the organized crime families in Landon, divided into 2 lineages, the one to the north and the other to the south. Tomas had recently become the Lord of the North after his uncle Lorcan's death. Other leaders of the northern family also vied for leadership. The elves of Cryos, the colonial power, had suffered a major defeat a month ago, which further contributed to the chaos of Landon, which is why Tomas always needed his top henchman and his hammer, Bone Wrecker. I hesitated, then moved to join Lord Tomas. Tomas grabbed the bottle of Varadin malt from the bar and a spare glass. He began to fill the second cup with whiskey. Tomas knew my favorite drink. The Lord put the cork back on the bottle and slid the glass over to me. I clinked cups with my boss and took a sip, feeling the burn down my throat. I frowned. I need to speak with you too. Oh, Lord Tomas stood straight. What about? Tomas was younger, in his 30s, with a mane of black hair down to his shoulders. His tunic and pants were made of the finest material available, even more expensive than I could afford. He wore dark leather boots. A golden necklace hung around his neck. I took another sip of whiskey. I've decided to retire. Tomas's brow creased. Then he sighed and said, no. I had prepared the arguments. I'm too old. You're only 45, Tomas scoffed, and you're in amazing shape. I'll be 50 years next year. Tomas shook his head. You can't, not now. I've raised up the men you need, I said. You have the numbers. It's time. Tomas pointed at my chest. I need you. I'm sorry, I made my decision. Will you stop? Tomas spread his arms. You haven't let me say why I need you. I stared at Lord Tomas. One of the lesser lords is out of line again, I'm guessing. Tomas growled. Listen, Mangit, this is bigger than that, bigger than anything you've ever done for me before. This gave me pause. What? Tomas became still and stared into my eyes. They have Lucas. Lucas, Lord Tomas's son, 4 years old. I tensed. Who has him? I don't know, Tomas said. That's the point, but he's missing. Someone took him. I set down my drink and rubbed my face. One of the lesser lords? Could be, Tomas said, but who knows? Maybe Lord Thren of the southern Daigal trying to take advantage after Lorcan's death? And it could be the elves. They control a big portion of the eastern city and the dock there. Lorcan dealt with them before. Maybe they're trying to get leverage over me. But no one's claimed to have him? Tomas leaned on the bar. No, no one. You didn't have him guarded? I'm not a Critan idiot. Of course I did, but they killed 2 men when they took him. He sipped his drink, hissed, and bared his teeth. This is why I need you, Grym. You've been with me since the beginning, almost 10 years now, longer than anyone. I know you're loyal. Who knows who's getting paid by another lord or the elves in my own palace? I can't trust them, not like I trust you. I glared at him. I need you to find Lucas, Tomas said. Find my son for me, please. I also leaned against the bar, my elbows on the wood. One condition, anything. I do this. I find the boy. Then I retire. I'm done. Tomas nodded. Yes, absolutely. Run down the mangers who took Lucas, kill them, and bring him back to me. And you're done. You retire. After taking a deep breath, I reached out, grabbed my glass, and took another sip of the Varadin whiskey. Fine, I said. I'll find your boy. All right, well, that was it. That was chapter 1. If you made it through, thank you so much for checking this out. I'm doing this as an experiment. I've got a pretty good story planned out for you here. Now, you let me know what you thought of it. Put it in the comments. And also, where should he go first? Where should Mr. Grym go first? Should he go to the elves? Should he try to check them out? Should he go to other lesser lords of the northern group, the northern family there? Maybe they're trying to undercut Tomas here. Or should he go to the southern group of families? Maybe somebody down there. You let me know. What do you think he should do? Or maybe there's a fourth option or fifth option I haven't thought of, right? Put all that in the comments. Remember to go into the description, check out a free ebook. I've also got my new book that just came out and just launched. So go there and check that out too. Check out that link. And remember to like, follow, share, subscribe, all of that fun stuff. Okay. Until next time, talk to you later.